We're off. Now we're recording.
All right.
Thanks for doing this, Chet, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, hey, man. My pleasure. Anybody else I can find that, has a taste for adventure, to spend some time hanging and talking about it, that's like my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, and actually, I looked at your Facebook, getting the Facebook page to start the video chat or whatever.
Yeah.
The first thing that pops up is the one to New York. And I know you went right before we went this past year for spring break.
Cool. Oh, cool. So y'all were right on our heels.
Yeah, because you went right before that, didn't you?
Yeah, we were right around Valentine's Day.
Okay, yeah.
And so it was actually perfect timing because, my wife was ready to pop in early April. So we were right there at the cutoff for flying safely with it. But we squeezed it in. It was awesome. What'd you do?
What we did, we flew up. We don't do Christmas gifts. We do trips, right, for the kids and everything. And we all got together and we flew up to New York. And then we rented a minivan and we drove all the way back.
Nice.
Yeah, so we stopped by and went and saw, we spent 2 days in New York, and then we went to Philly, D.C., North Carolina, Atlanta, and then that stretch all the way home we just drove through. Picked up some food in Louisiana.
Pushbacks. Fly through Louisiana as fast as possible, yeah.
Yeah, it's great food, but from like Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, it all looks the same when you go through.
Oh, that's very true. Very true. I love it how every billboard on those highways is nothing but the best boudin in Louisiana. Stop now. The best boudin in Louisiana, and then go. We're better than that last guy's boudin. Stop at ours. They were nothing but Cajun, dive advertising. Every one of them.
Yep.
Which was pretty fun.
Yep. And they're all good, pretty much. It's
all basically the same stuff. Pretty good Cajun roadside food,
Yep. So
that's a dream trip, man. I'm gonna take your advice. Just buy the one-way ticket, rent the van.
It was a lot of fun. The minivan. I was like, nah, there's no way I'm driving. After we got done, we are really saving up for a minivan. It was the best ride.
You've been converted.
Yes, for sure. I mean, the kids had all the room. They could stand up, they could stretch, they could move seats. The seats folded in so they could have more room. I mean, they drove great. It rode awesome.
Man.
The wife says I look really good in a minivan driving it, so it's
happy wife, happy life. If she thinks you look good, then go for it, man.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So I gotta know, I watched your stuff a lot. I kind of bounced. I was like, hey, we went to Big Bend, and I saw you hike up to the top of Alpine, and because we were actually looking for things to do over in that area, and when we asked people, they couldn't really tell us a whole lot of the locals other than there's a bar over here and a bar over there. We don't do a ton of that. We like the adventure stuff, so. We were looking for things. I was like, oh, that's super cool. Look at that. We could have hiked up to that desk right up there, and just all these cool little things. So, and then I went down a rabbit hole of just watching your little clips of your videos and different places in Texas to keep up in the memory bank, and things to go. And I was like, this dude, he has the ultimate job of adventuring around and checking out all the places in Texas and searching them out and, all that good stuff. How did you get started? Were you always did you always travel like this, or how did you get started with this thing?
No, I think, my job it's a very interesting bifurcated job. I've got, there's the adventurous side of my brain that wants nothing more than to just run up a hill as fast as I can, see the view, sit there and eat a sack lunch and ponder life looking out, and then ride down some back alley and find the barbecue joint. So I've got this adventurous side of my brain that just wants to go. But then in this job, there's the television production side of the brain. And so, doing something and then documenting yourself doing something is a very different kind of thing. And so it's been fun. Luckily, I've got both of those passions. So, I started off, did the Boy Scout thing growing up. Made it to Eagle, and so did a lot of camping and just exploring with my family. We did a lot of road trips, in a minivan, actually a Suburban, and we would Dad had a Suburban, and it was kind of either or as to which one we took on the long trips. But regardless, we would rip out the back seat, put the luggage in, and put a mattress on top of it, and then we would just like sleep on all the road trips. Like, my kids will never know what it's like to spend 6 hours on their back staring out. Like you got a little sliver of window, right? Because the mattress almost went to the ceiling. And you got like 3 inches of window you could look out and watch the world go by. And so we were always exploring the back roads. And then I fell into, just a love of making movies in my backyard with my grandpa's video camera. That ultimately led me to UT, where I majored in radio, television, and film. And a random side trip there where I went to law school, then found myself practicing law in Austin and thought, man, I'm just not passionate about this. This is not the way I want to spend the next 50 years of my life. And so I thought, well, man, I love adventure and I love television production. Let me see if I can put these things together. And we literally just loaded up my SUV at the time and went to Waco. And I was like, man, I think there's a show here, because I'm eager for this information, and I can't be the only person who's dying for this information. I mean, you mentioned it's like I couldn't find all this stuff without digging. And I thought, man, it'd be so good to have a show that combined food and outdoors and history, because I kind of love all that. And then helped educate people on what to do. So I said, look, I was in Austin at the time, and this was 2007, so no one cared about Waco at all. Everybody, Waco was the big dog of I-35. And so I thought, man, if I can convince Austinites to want to go to Waco, I can convince them to want to go anywhere in the world. So we made our first episode about Waco. And it was literally me, Richie, who's still part of the team, my wife, and a camera buddy that I had from UT, who was part of the first 2 seasons, named Nate. And we just went up there and we had no idea what we were doing, and there really wasn't travel vlogging at the time. And so we were just flying by the seat of our pants, and ultimately came back and had something that looked like a show that PBS was like, yes, that's it. Make as many as you can. We're not paying for any of it. PBS. Make as many as you can. I was like, that doesn't work. How does that work? And so they're like, well, you got to go find partnerships and stuff like that. And so that's how we've been able to find, great companies like Rudy's Barbecue, who've been with us since the first season, literally. Chevrolet, Best Western, Texas Farm Bureau, now Ranch Hand, Grill Guards, some great partners.
That's pretty awesome. So how did you shoot? So how did the process go where you didn't have any money, but you had to make a TV show now? Did you have a bunch saved up, or did you just be like, well, how are we going to do this?
Oh, man. Well, it was just the blessings of the good Lord. I mean, so my buddy Nate just happened to be running the equipment closet at ACC at the time. So he was in charge of checking out cameras to ACC students who wanted to make movies and stuff. And so, way better equipment than UT even had anywhere in the building, which is odd. And so I was like, would the dean let us take all this equipment? And he's like, I can ask. Sure enough, we go ask the dean. She's like, yeah, go, that sounds awesome. Go do it. And so we went, we loaded up. It was all borrowed gear. I did have money saved up. I mean, being a lawyer pays well. So I saved up a war chest, knowing that I wasn't going to be a lawyer forever. I didn't go and blow it on the BMW and the big house out in the hill country or anything like that. So we were smart with what we needed in order to bridge the gap. And but there were some lean years there, man. Very lean years.
Yeah, and a lot of hours. A lot of hours you're not getting paid for, you're putting in.
Oh, endless.
Yeah.
Endless. But it goes back to that saying. It's only partially true, but the thing is, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I mean that is true, but also if you love what you do, you'll work harder in your life than you ever have before.
100%.
You're just not tracking the hours, right?
Yeah. Your hourly pay's tiny.
Oh yeah, yeah. Someone's told me to calculate it, and I'm yet to do that. I'm like, no, that is a terrifying number. I'm going to find out, I make, basically a waiter's salary without tips. And but it's fun, man. It's fun. And I get to do some amazing things. And I feel like I'm really doing what I was gifted to do, sort of like you doing this podcast, like you're doing something you love and you're clearly have been given a gift to do this. And so finding a way to line up the natural talents we have into something productive that we enjoy that could generate a living at some point,
That would be amazing if that could happen.
Yeah. Hey, crazier things have happened, man. Crazier things have absolutely happened.
Yeah, but I want to. How old are you? Because it doesn't look like you're old enough to go through law school and then practice law before this whole thing happened. That seems like a long road.
Go back 10 years and watch season 1. I look like a baby face. I look like an old grizzled man now.
I watched a couple of old ones. I was like, man, without the beard, he really looks young.
Yeah. I look, 10-year challenge is a little rough here for the Daytripper. Between, what is it? Like when we started the show, I had 1 kid. Now I've got 5. I had 0 employees. Now I've got 7. Like those things will age you. Those things will age you. Not to mention the miles, but it's fun. It's fun, man. And then, so I'm 38. I'm 38 to answer your question.
Oh wow, we're the same age.
Yeah. Oh, very good.
Right on.
See, man.
There you go. And then I saw you just opened a headquarters where you sell a bunch of gear and stuff like that. But you still only have 7 employees.
7. Well, okay. 7 full-time employees.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, okay. Add about 4 of that for the store. 4
gotcha.
Out of that, so maybe 11. They're part-timers. Definitely, I mean, they're full-fledged members of the team. They're just not here doing the Daytrippers day-to-day work.
Yeah.
Making stuff, but they hold down our retail fort like champs.
So where is it located?
Yeah, so we opened. I started the show. I lived in East Austin, and my wife and we lived there about 6 years. And about 7 years ago, we moved up here to Georgetown because I wanted to be part of a smaller community, and I just kind of fell in love with the Georgetown Square. I mean, the history, like you step out on the street and you kind of feel connected to this past. It's like I'm doing something they've been doing down here for 100 years, and it just that kind of stuff is my muse. So we just were able to buy a old building on the square that we've turned into our Daytripper World headquarters. So we're about a half a block off the square in downtown Georgetown. It's awesome. And this building, now it's our retail shop and our full production studio, but we've been doing all the history into it. This building has been here since 1890. And
holy
like
smokes.
I know it's crazy. It started off as a buggy builder selling buggies. Then it turned into a livery, which is where you would board your horses if you were going to town. You got to have somewhere to board your horses. So you ride in for 30 miles out in the country. You're going to stay in town for a few days. So someone would keep and water your horses for you. I guess they did that in this building. After that, it was an automotive shop. At some point in there, it was a bottling works. I don't know what they were bottling, like Dr. Pepper or beer or something. I have no idea. And then automotive shop, a stained glass studio, and now it's the Daytripper World headquarters. So it's pretty cool, too, to work in a place where it's like, the walls, the walls are all new except for the other ones, but look at the floor is all sheet rolled over.
Yeah.
It's got, there's definitely places you should not step, but it's got this old black floor, and we built all the walls and everything with the ceiling.
Wow, that's cool looking.
Come see us, man.
Yeah, no, we will for sure. We actually go to Austin quite often. We go to the and then my wife's from up there in the Georgetown area. Like she lived there for a while. Yeah, so or Round Rock and all that. So
yeah.
So yeah, we're through there all the time. So I mean, yeah, we're for sure gonna stop by. For sure.
It's not bad.
We take day trips to the Greenbelt all the time, and then we'll go over to Spicewood just to eat Opie's barbecue.
Oh man,
That's one of my
sweet
favorites.
and spicy ribs.
Yeah.
Sweet. Do you get those sweet and spicy ribs?
We get a little of almost everything inside that big metal
Yeah.
container.
So there are, gosh, we've done over 100 episodes. We eat roughly twice in every episode. And of those, there's probably a dozen things that in my happy place, when I go places in my brain, I'm eating that food. And one of those things is the sweet and spicy ribs from Opie's Barbecue. Oh my gosh. They got a habanero sweet glaze on them. What are you doing? Let's go. Meet me up there in about an hour.
Yeah, it'll take me a little longer to get there than that. But from College Station, it's a little bit further.
A little farther.
Yeah.
A little farther.
But
are y'all getting good barbecue in College Station? Historically, y'all got a Rudy's, and that's great. Are y'all getting any mom and pop places open up?
There's a couple. I was in the food service business for a long time. We owned a food service like Benny Keith or a Cisco type of thing, but in the Rio Grande Valley. And so barbecue was always just kind of generic to me everywhere you go. That's why Opie's stuck out, because I moved up here to College Station and I had some of their barbecue restaurants and they're good, well, and whatnot, but then it doesn't compare to when you have barbecue over there.
Yeah, that craft barbecue, man, it's next level.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult. It's like that's one thing that you do that I love, that is one of our favorite things to do, is to go to wherever we go, whatever state we go to, whatever area, is eat what they make there locally.
Yeah. You have to.
There's a huge difference in if somebody makes it outside that area and brings it in. Like Mexican food in the Valley is not even close to the same thing once you start getting to Corpus and past.
This is true. Yeah.
So
I love me some Valley Mexican, man. I do. I love a greasy plate of Tex-Mex, covered in chili con carne, but I love me some just Brownsville street tacos.
Oh, they're the best. They're the best.
Yeah.
Yep. I miss it.
Cool.
But so I guess I did wonder while I was watching the episodes, just like how much you actually have to find to eat, because I know that it's not just like one shot and you're done, most of the time, is it?
Sure. No. Gosh, no.
Yeah.
Man, that's where all the bloopers come from. But the eating. So when you're filming, you're kind of moving through this internal punch list in your head. I've got to get the eating shots. I got to get the close-ups. I've got to get close-ups of whatever I'm eating being prepared. I've got to get this, that, and the other. And so, unfortunately, when we're filming, a lot of times I run through that eating segment as if it's just a thing to check off the punch list. It's not to say I don't enjoy the food. I love the food.
Yeah.
But as soon as we're done with the camera, I'm like, all right, what's next? The rest of this burger is going to have to wait. I got 4 or 5 big bites into it, and now I've got to jump into the kitchen for the owner interview or whatever. And so I don't get to finish it all. But the way we schedule our shoots, every crew meal is immediately after we're done filming. So we go to a restaurant and we finish filming, then we turn the cameras off and we have our crew break where the crew eats, like a normal customer would. And so usually I end up eating a second lunch with all of them, just off camera.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but man, if you ate everything I did on the road, you'd be 450 pounds, man. Because I'm not exactly eating, vegan wraps or anything like that.
No, you got to show people the good stuff, and the good stuff is not always the top of the line on health.
No, it is not. No. We do try to mix it up. I love my fresh seafood and stuff like that. We're, in the first couple seasons, we kind of made a niche for ourselves being barbecue. And it's not that I tired out of barbecue, but I was like, man, we're kind of doing Texas a disservice. We need to expand, because Texas is a culinary mecca between all you got all the cowboy traditions of barbecue and country cooking, and then you got all the Mexican influence. You've got the coastal influence, the German influence. It's everything, man. It's a boiling pot of deliciousness. So it's been cool to sort of dive in and explore not just like the food dish itself, but like the history of the food, which I always find fascinating. Like, how exactly did Tex-Mex become a thing? Because to your point, like, you go to Brownsville, they're not eating Tex-Mex, they're eating something different. And so when and where did Tex-Mex become its own food group? And there's a whole long history of it. That's for another podcast, but it's fun.
Well, I mean, you can tell just talking right now, you have like this crazy passion for just the food, the history. Just hearing you talk about your building, man. You know the history behind the building you're in, you know? And most people don't know. They're just like, I just need this place to open up my stuff. And so I guess it bleeds over. And I was telling you before the podcast, like, you sounding genuine, like it really does come across that way. Like, you're really enjoying hearing these stories that people have to tell and learning about the area and learning about the food. I mean, it comes across as like you're really into it. And now I can tell by talking to you, it's like it's the same thing.
Well, thanks, man. The people, like, I've been told, like, wow, you're the same way in person like you are on camera. And that's one of the highest compliments you can give me, because, you know, I'm not acting at all, and I don't have to act, which makes my job super simple. You know, I don't have to put on a character when the cameras are rolling, and I've geared the show toward who I am naturally, which means it's an easy job. It's an easy fit.
Doesn't that help for, like, longevity?
Oh, I think so, man. I think if I didn't enjoy it, I would have burned out a long time ago, because there's a lot of road dogging. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. We're on the road a lot and going to some pretty remote places. And I am always, it doesn't matter where we're headed, I'm excited to see it. It's been something I want to see, and there's at least a few things I'm in the episode that I've wanted to do for many, many years. But, you know, we've run through, a lot of the crew has been here for quite a while. But then there are some other people who've kind of come and gone as producers. And they come in for a season and they're gung-ho, and then the next season they are a little less gung-ho, and then, you know, by maybe the third season, it's all a blur to them, and it kind of turns into mush in their brain. It's just another road trip and another barbecue joint and something else. And some of those producers haven't even been with us a full season. And these are some of my friends who I bring on to fill the field producer role, who kind of sets up scheduling and coordinating, because, you know, the barbecue joint has to know exactly when we're going to be there. And then if we're running 15 minutes late, they got to get a heads up. Hey, don't prep the food yet. We're 15 minutes late. There's a whole lot of stuff behind the scenes, you know, kind of how the sausage gets made that isn't so sexy as eating the sausage. And so, it just to say, it'll wear you down if you're not passionate about it, and if you don't love it. It wears down quicker.
Well, that's so mine is on a much smaller scale. It's just me by myself producing this thing. Producing is not necessarily my strong point, like learning how all these little gadgets work and everything. I put a whole lot of effort into it, but that's on now I have a different appreciation when I watch somebody like yourself travel, like you travel, and you're doing the writing and producing and all these different things, you're in all these. That takes so much, way more work than what people think. They think it's just turn on the camera and you're done.
Right, absolutely. This happens all the time. We're filming a segment and they go, so will this be on the air this weekend? Oh, you have no idea what we actually do you? And I'm like, you know, we're filming now. We were filming in May for October. And you tell them, like, no, we're 6 months out on even seeing daylight at all on this thing. And they're like, what? We just watched you film it. It's done. Just, you know, throw it on TV. I'm like, oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. And even a podcast, right? Seems very simple jumping in, but you can get buried in the weeds really quickly. And so if you're not passionate about what you do, you're going to burn out. And that's an indication that you need to be doing something else. And the contribution you've been called to bring to this world is something different. You know, that's a big thing of me helping other people. And I don't know what I'll be doing, in 10 years after this, but it'll be something I'm passionate about. And I really do want to help other people find their passion. I believe we've all got a calling and a certain talent in our life, and we owe it to the world to turn that back in.
I love that right there. That's definitely like one of my big things is that I always say like everybody can succeed. Like I never understood the scarcity mindset of like holding information back from people because I need the upper hand to sell a product to somebody else, and I can't give you this information because you might jump me in the line of command in this company. I mean, if I help you out, then you're better for the company, and then we all do better. Like I don't understand that mindset. I've always thought helping others out helps me out.
Exactly. It does. You just have to think a lot bigger than those people who are sort of scared, right? They're operating under fear, and that's the wrong way to live. That's the wrong way to live.
Yes.
Rising tide raises all ships, and so you help someone else rise the tide, your ship goes up. That's what's one of the best things about my team that I've got surrounding me right now. We're constantly reevaluating what our roles are because it's a matter of finding who's better at what than someone else, So that's like, hey, you didn't come into our company to do this, but you're clearly good at this. And we would love to kind of run down and embrace that. And before you know it, they're getting more job satisfaction out of it, and the team is benefiting more from it. And then you find someone else to do that thing you thought they were going to do. And so we're constantly reevaluating our team and swizzling stuff, but always for the better.
Yeah, finding people's talents, put them in the right spot. I mean, your show even does the same thing. I mean, think about you're putting people on TV. Like little restaurants are starving for business. I mean, it sounds funny to say that, but like all these places are looking for clients to come into their place, and it's just exposure, like great exposure for your stuff being on YouTube and on PBS and everywhere else, like that they can find these little clips of all these places that you go to. It just brings all this free exposure to them that they wouldn't normally have.
Right. And that is truthfully one of the most, rewarding parts of the job is you find this little small mom and pop who doesn't really understand marketing, and they're just amazing at making pie, right? And they're so bogged down in making pie, which is like one of the hardest things to do on the planet, if you're actually going to make pie the right way with the crust and all that. And so they're just really good at it, but they've got a little local customer base, and they're just kind of making it. And you take them and you give them this big megaphone that goes out all over Texas and the country and the internet, and before you know it, they're finally making a comfortable living making pie, and they can hire someone else. They can build their team up. So we get that feedback all the time, and I love it. Like, man, you just have no idea. We know when your show airs because we sell out a chicken fried steak for the next year. People coming in from, gosh, we got stories like we featured a fried shrimp place down around Houston, and turns out there were people who watched the show in Austin in the afternoon and were eating fried shrimp in Houston that night.
Whoa.
They drove 3 hours to just eat fried shrimp. And then they were like, well, where are you staying? Like, no, we're going to drive home. We just wanted to try some. It looked so good on TV. And hopefully we don't let them down.
That's incredible, though. They drove from Austin all the way over there just to eat shrimp and come back.
Yeah.
That's got to be.
Sometimes, it's one little add-on. Sometimes the owners of the business will be like, well, how was the show? How did it end? And they're like, oh, we didn't even finish it. Like, we saw the fried shrimp, got so hungry, we turned it off. But it's on our DVR. We'll watch the rest when we get home. Literally turn it off and drive immediately to eat shrimp. Or barbecue or anything, It's fun.
That to me, like when somebody comes up and says, hey, I listened to the podcast of this guy, he's such an interesting person, that right there makes me feel on top of the world. Like I'm not getting paid to do this, but it's like that's the best paycheck that I could ever receive.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so
yeah.
That's even on a like more mega scale, which is just, that's got to be awesome, dude.
That's awesome, man. That, you're not getting paid yet, but I've always been a big proponent, do what you love regardless of whether or not anybody's paying for it. And eventually people will take note. And you got such a good thing going, man. I wouldn't be surprised before this turns into a living.
Well,
serious.
That would be awesome, and I appreciate the compliment. It really is awesome. You don't always realize that. I don't know if you ever do this. I've been like this my whole entire life, whether it be sports or whatever it is, whatever activity I'm doing. I never look at myself as being good at anything, really. I don't know if that makes sense. I know I'm good, but then I never think that I'm good. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's called humility, right? There's a humility that doesn't have to be spoken when you meet certain people that comes across, and it's endearing, and you want to help them. It's like they're so good, they don't act like they're good, because there's nothing worse than an entitled person, right? Peacocking around like they're the best guy in the room, and whether that's true or not, like they just shouldn't do it. So humility will get you a long way in life. And the power, never underestimate the power of being nice. Just don't be a jerk. Man,
that's totally true. Like, why can't people just be nice more often?
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know.
It's weird that outshines things sometimes. I'm like, it's not. I mean, what? Maybe I just have a kind heart. I don't know, but it seems like being nice is like way easier.
It totally is. Yeah. It totally is. Just like being honest is way easier. You don't have to create these big fabricated lies, these towers of lies protecting whatever it is you're lying about.
Oh yeah, going back and forth. So
there were some books behind me somewhere about one. I think one of them's called The Power of Nice, that I actually did read.
Oh, that's
I didn't actually read all these books.
You actually did read.
Yeah, I think so. It might be underneath. It might be the thing that's propping my laptop up. No. Maybe it's at home.
I do a bunch of audiobooks, so I'll have to look up The Power of Nice. I drive
I think it's called The Power of Nice. Yeah. You narrate audiobooks?
No.
Oh, okay, you listen to them.
Reading is not my strong point. Like, as far as like reading out loud, that would probably be a bad. It wouldn't go as smooth as what I'm talking right now. I can tell you that. If you put a cue card up in front of me, be like, man, where?
Hello, welcome to my podcast. I'm here Jordan.
Yeah, that's exactly the way it would be. Like, wait, hold on. Cut that. Hold on.
You know what? On the road, we get this all the time. Like, I'll be sitting there cutting up with some guy back by his barbecue pit or something for 30 minutes. We're just talking about family and life and smoking meat. And then as soon as those cameras turn on, hello, welcome to my barbecue pit. I use a mix of live oak and post oak. And, what? Like, oh, man. So you got to try to back off of that. And you're like, look, bro, you were so good right before the cameras. Just pretend like they're not there anymore. And sometimes they can get over it. Sometimes they can't. But sometimes they can.
I guess it is a little different. Because I've had the same thing with podcast people. So people that are just have these amazing stories. And I'm like, yeah, this is like, for sure you need to be on, and they might be a friend of mine. And I go, this is going to be great. We have a great conversation. And then it's almost like they're trying to script what they're trying to say and not be, not come off weird. I guess when you talked about honesty, that's kind of it, but I'm almost over vulnerable at some points where it's like, okay, man, like, what are you going to find out about me that's going to be bad? Go ahead. Like, shoot at me, like, it's more fun to open up and, be vulnerable with somebody and have a conversation than it is to hold things back.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, there's nothing worse sometimes when we go to a location and they're like, oh, our PR person is going to handle this interview. And you're like, oh
no.
Historically, PR people are the worst. It's like, what are the talking points? Stick to the talking points, and you can't kick them off them. Whether they're good people or not, they're kind of instructed to stick to the talking points.
Yep.
And it's not that the talking points are necessarily bad. You just end up with a little bit of an inauthentic conversation.
Yeah. So not to switch gears a little bit, but it hit my brain earlier, something you said, is, you talking about traveling so much, and then you have all these kids.
Yeah.
That can be, I traveled a little bit, like I've had, to work out of town 3 or 4 nights a week, for a while, during half the year, I'd be gone. And that is that's way more difficult than what people think as well.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Luckily, my trips are usually short. So if I'm going to be traveling that week, for the most part, it will be now. The past few months have been an exception because I've been bouncing around like everywhere. But if all we're doing is the Daytripper, we're going to knock those episodes out with one night away. So on a Thursday and a Friday, and I'll spend Thursday night on the road. But I'll be gone. You'll leave really early, 5:30 or something like that on Thursday. I'll be gone Thursday night and then get back pretty late on a Friday. So I miss basically 2 full days, but only one night. And that's doable because then I get to recalibrate for the weekend, spend some quality time, and then there are a lot of short trips as opposed to 4 nights in a row on the road week after week military deployment. Gosh,
that's a whole other. I have so much respect for the family members and the spouses and of all of my military friends. I'm like, man, kudos to them for sure.
It is hard. And none of them are going to say oh, it's no big thing. They'll all say it is very hard. And you know what that means, just distant conversations on the phone. Sometimes it's hard being away. And then the other things you deal with, feeling emotionally distant from your spouse, that's horribly hard, but you can't connect because you're across the sea. And then we go to church right now in Georgetown, and we just happen to be 45 minutes to Fort Hood. So there's a lot of military families who live in Georgetown because the schools are good and they commute up to Fort Hood. So this is the first time in my life I've really had a bunch of military friends, and I've walked through a lot of deployments with those families, and my respect for what they go through has only grown exponentially watching it all happen. It's hard. It's crazy.
So
but luckily I don't have to deal with anything like that.
Yeah, the short trips are pretty cool because that's one thing. Everybody always thought that we were always on vacation on our trips, and we would literally leave Friday after work, or maybe take a half a day on Friday, and then we'd be back Sunday evening for work Monday morning. We'd fly out, go hike the mountains in Utah, see a glacier lake, go over here, eat this stuff, and then fly back. And I mean,
awesome.
just we try to maximize our entertainment and travel and fit it around our lifestyle. So I dig these little short trips, but at the same time, that's a hustling, dude, in Texas because you got some long distances to drive.
So we've put a cutoff. If we're going more than 4 hours away, we do a 2-night trip. So we just were in Longview. That was a 2-night trip. We went and hiked in the Davis Mountains recently. That was a 2-night trip. But if it's under 4 hours, luckily we're right in the middle of Texas. So you got the 4 hours is a big net.
Oh yeah,
that's a big circle.
Yep.
If it's over 4 hours, it is 2 nights. Or we just did a Brownsville and Port Isabel episode. We did that as a combo. So that one I was gone pretty much all week. And then Midland, Odessa, that was a full week shoot. So there's certainly exceptions, right, to every rule. But for the most part, it's short trips. And you were able to pack in a ton into those trips. And this was the genesis of the show. I had traveled abroad a lot of time and spent, lots of money and lots of time away going to places that I thought I needed to see before I died. And then kind of came back in my mid-20s, looked around Texas and gone, dude, the stuff here is just as good as so much of that stuff over in Europe or Asia. And people just don't know about it. And so I was like, man, we are sitting in this place where it's man, I'll never get to do this big trip, or it's so hard to do this big trip, or I'm going to wait 5 years and then I'll do this big trip. And we're overlooking this gold mine of adventure that's just an hour away, 2 hours away, And so that was what the Daytripper was all about right at the beginning. It was man, don't live in this area of adventure discontentment, which now, especially with social media, right, has only grown because you see all these beautiful places all over the world.
Yeah.
Going, oh, man, someday, maybe, and you're neglecting the lowest hanging fruit, which are just these little day trips they could pack in a ton, or like a little weekend trip, right?
Yeah, 100%. And then you get to see it. You get to talk to people. You get to recharge. And there's some amazing spots. Like we had never been to Big Bend. We went to Big Bend. That place has stuck out in my mind forever. It's amazing. It's an amazing place. And it doesn't even feel like you're in Texas anymore. You're still in Texas. No. Like, it's kind of crazy how it almost feels like. And then Paladero Canyon, that place is amazing as well. Like, it's totally different than down there at Big Bend. You've got all these different spots and that you can go explore on these little day trips. And that, you said that about going to abroad. I talked to a couple people from Europe, and they asked me if I'd been to the Grand Canyon before, and I was like, no, I haven't really thought about it much. And he goes, Americans always underestimate the Grand Canyon. People outside the United States travel, and it is amazing. He's like, you have to go. And so I finally went. We went on one of our Christmas vacation. We did it in 4 days. We went to Grand Canyon, stayed in Zion for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then went to Bryce Canyon and drove back.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
Grand Canyon was amazing. Just like he said, until you see it, you just don't realize its beauty. And that's kind of the way Texas is as well. Like, you see these little spots, you go, oh, I feel like I've been driving so long, and it's like a treadmill. The scenery just changes a little bit as I drive by, but it's so flat. And then all of a sudden you get to this beautiful spot. You know?
Yeah. That's exactly right. Like, Paladero is not the Grand Canyon, but it is still amazing and beautiful and impressive. And most Texans have heard of it, but have never gone, nor have they necessarily had the desire to go. But gosh, it's awesome. Or, man, in every corner of the state, really getting lost in the piney woods. Go to Caddo Lake in Northeast Texas, and you feel like you're in these deep wood swamps. I could go on. I could bore you to death.
Yeah, well, how do you? So when you go on these scouting trips and finding your location, do you just pick a spot? Do you hear of things? How does that all work?
Well, yeah, I'm constantly keeping like a running punch list of things. So I read Texas Monthly, Texas Highways, Texas Co-op Power. Try to stay on top of. Just all the different blogs. I follow a bunch of little blogs and websites and things like that. And so I've got just a never-ending punch list. It was all scribbled on napkins, tear out corners of magazines. And I finally put it in a spreadsheet a few years ago. And so I've got this never-ending spreadsheet of all the things people have recommended to me. But now with this job, I got people all the time. Hey, did you know there's this or that or whatever? And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And so I'll add it to the list, and then, someday when I'm planning the upcoming season, I do it all at once. And I'm like, okay, I got 13 episodes. I want to make sure I hit the hill country. I'm going to hit East Texas. I'm going to hit West Texas. Where are some cool things that are unknown, and then geographically diverse. The food's got to be diverse. The activities that I'm doing have to be diverse. And then eventually I'll patch it all together and be like, all right, that's a well-rounded season. So I always go back to that spreadsheet.
Well, because if you follow your Instagram, like you said, you went down to the valley and you're in like South Padre, you're in Brownsville, then you're over in like what I consider West Texas, over by Big Bend, then you're in Longview, and I'm like, holy smokes, dude, this is 2 days later.
I know. Man. I put on some miles. Now, my stories are always what I'm doing that actual day. The Instagram itself, like if I'm on a boring day in the office, we're going to throw some picture up there from somewhere just to kind of, but we're not going to act like I'm actually there right now. Now, people see and believe what they want to on social media. Like, you were just here. Like, that picture's 5 years old, man. Yeah. But man, in June, I'll tell you, June 1st, I was in Tyler. Then I drove back to Georgetown. Then I went to Fort Davis, Davis Mountains, Marfa. Then I immediately drove to Dallas, then Kerrville, then South Padre. And then, so it was a busy June, man. I'm going to calculate the mileage. I think I broke a record. I'm pretty sure I broke a record.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
That makes me happy. You want to know something funny?
What's that?
I was having to get a new truck for work, and I was traded in, and I actually had happened to see your thing on having a Trail Boss, and I was like, that's a pretty cool truck. And then one showed up at the place where I could get it, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I actually have one.
You got a Trail Boss! Yes! Dude, the Trail Boss is the baddest truck I've ever driven. You love it?
It's actually really nice, man. It's
truck.
awesome. Yeah, I was like, I can see why he likes driving this. It has everything that you need for like hauling stuff and traveling. And my wife did me get car sick in it. It's wonderful. So
yeah, dude, man, it's awesome. On our family journeys, we've outgrown it. There was a period there we could squeeze a few extra behinds in the back. Not anymore. But have you kicked in 4-wheel drive? Have you had to go out and test it yet?
Not yet. No, I've only had it for like a month.
Oh, okay. Oh man, it's great. I think. See, I've got a very sweet deal with Don Hewlett Chevrolet here in Georgetown. That I drive demos, and so when I hit 5,000 miles, I got to go turn them back in. But now I'm like, just keep me in the Trail Bosses. That's all I want. But I think I'm on my 3rd Trail Boss, and I won't let him give me anything else. It's not a bad deal, right? The car keeps changing out. You keep getting a new car, which I'm not complaining about.
Yeah, I mean, I had a Toyota before that, and the kids were like, we kind of missed the Toyota. This one's way too nice. This is too nice of a truck. I mean, my Toyota had like 350,000 miles on it. So,
dude, no way! Wow.
Yeah, that thing. Wow. I get kind of partial to it because I spend so much time in it. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like I wasn't heartbroken. Trust me, the new truck was nice.
Yeah, it doesn't show.
But at the same time, I'm like, man, I kind of have a lot of memories in this truck. A lot of road has been traveled. A lot of ditches have been gone through, and trees been pushed over, and things hauled with this thing, And so it there is that point to having it, and I do like older vehicles with some character, But man,
it'll be there soon enough.
I just thought about it when I got the Trail Boss. I was like, power of marketing. Dang it, Chet got me. He freaking got me. Do I like this because he?
See, I'm writing right now. Go remind Chevy that Aaron just bought a Trail Boss. I'll make sure that's in there for my next sponsorship renewal.
Oh, play on the podcast. I admit it openly.
Yeah. It was unsolicited. I didn't make him say that.
Yeah, totally. But I guess sponsors, like all that stuff, your adventure stuff, traveling in the truck. Do your kids and stuff ever get to come along with you?
Oh, yeah. So my kids, I call the kids are the scout team. So we've got a Suburban as well that we take on scouting trips. And so that's what I love to do when I'm not filming, because, filming a show with 5 kids is chaos. So they don't come with me when I'm actually making the show, but we do a lot of family travel outside of filming that they get to come along with. And, they're pretty good now at, like, I'm raising a bunch of like food critics. So we've managed to not raise picky kids. And so they'll try anything and everything, and we'll go in a place and make sure they try it all. And I let them act like their opinion counts. And so they give me their feedback. And then we scout around, jump in some swimming holes, see some museums. It's very whistle stop like. All right, into this museum. Okay, saw it. Back in the van.
That's ours. That's what we do. It's like how long are we going to hang out in this museum? Let's go. We got some other things to see. It's exactly. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, the one we would like to go back to is actually Washington, D.C., because there's so much to see there. You cannot take it in. You can't take it in. Yeah. It's
very true. And we've got, so my oldest is 10. How old are yours?
They are 10, 12, and 15.
10, 12, 15. Oh, yeah, you're prime for DC. They can comprehend the greater context of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so mine are, 10, 8, 6, 3, 0. And so we're wondering, like, okay, we don't want to miss the windows. We're playing in a lot of Little League different divisions here with all these kids, And so we'll probably in the next year or two take the big ones to Washington D.C. and leave the littles at home with somebody else, so that we can dive into some of that stuff. But we love it. I love it there. Laura, my wife, she's never been, so I'm dying to take her there.
Have you ever thought about branching out the Daytripper into something outside of Texas?
We had the open pitch. We had the open door with some of the cable networks, and they were like, "Hey, so we love the idea, we love the concept, but as with all the cable networks, they want to own all the IP, and so I own the Daytripper, and we hold on to that pretty tightly, and so they weren't interested in the Daytripper." And I was like, "Well, that's kind of what I love doing, and what I'm building this brand." And they're like, "Yeah, we're not interested. What else do you have?" And so it was an opportunity to go bigger, but it didn't work out for us. It didn't pass the sniff test, in my opinion. And so we decided to stay in Texas. Now, the show airs all over the country.
Yeah.
But we're only Texas in focus. And I think that's kind of been our secret sauce. If we had started off as a nationwide show, we would have just been grouped with all the other travel content out there. But I think because we're in Texas, I'm a Texan, we're making a show about Texas, we've hit a sweet spot with a Texas audience. I mean, Texas is almost 30 million people, so it's no small audience. And that's allowed us to kind of, I guess, embed ourselves here in this sort of Texas mythos, which we couldn't have done if we were just another travel show.
Yeah.
And also it goes back to why am I doing this? And I always say this, I make a TV show that hopefully inspires people to watch less TV. And I want that to, if I were making a show about Chicago or San Francisco or Bali or whatever, like, yeah, it'd be fun. But at the end of the day, it would be couch potato fodder for you. You'd go, wow, that was fun. I'll never go there. Next,
Yeah.
And so I really do want to show people what they can do with their families. And I think we've made a bigger impact doing it that way.
I mean, when you explain it, it makes perfect sense. It really does. And you said something really cool about the ownership thing. I've thought about a lot because, I mean, obviously a dream would be owning my own business and all that good stuff. It would be great, working for myself. But that's the whole point. Like, I want the hard work, but I would never give that up. Like, I wouldn't want to give ownership away. As soon as you said the cable people wanted ownership, it's like, oh man, that's immediate. Like, that's a tough one.
It is. I mean, you're a guy in a shirt, really, for the big networks, and just to give you a couple examples, I mean, this worked out really well for them. They've made a lot of money and they've gotten a lot of success, but like Chip and Joanna Gaines, Magnolia is theirs. They do not own Fixer Upper. Fixer Upper, that's owned by HGTV and all those guys. They were able to use Fixer Upper as a platform to explode Magnolia. The Duck Dynasty guys, the same thing. They don't own Duck Dynasty. They own Duck Commander.
Yeah.
They were able to use Duck Dynasty to blow up this brand that was doing something else. But it's an interesting play when you go to the cable, because for the TV show, they want to own it all. So you better have something else you're marketing when you jump into the cable machine, get chewed up and spit out, that you've got some kind of thing that you were building in the background, that they let you build in the background, which for most people, that's really hard to do.
Well, I mean, it says a lot about you and your show and why it's so good that you wouldn't give up the ownership of it for the money.
Yeah. No, I want to be doing this for the next 50 years. When the people on when you jump into that world, you're on a ticking clock. Your day will come. It will expire. And where are you going then? And so I was like, man, I think there's more longevity doing something like this. Not only is it more fun, not only do I have complete creative control, which I also have to give up, but I can ride this. Maybe not another 50 years. Gosh, I'd be 88. Maybe I can ride. Yeah, 88. I'll do it. I'll do it on a rascal, man.
There you go.
I have a little liquor. Someone's gonna puree the barbecue for me before I drink it through a straw. 88. 88's not too bad. Maybe I'll retire at 88.
88 sounds good. Man.
Yeah, that sounds all right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I really dig that, and that's how you can tell, like, finding people's passion. I've talked about it a lot, is just tough. Like, it's tough for people to find their passion, what they love to do. It's tough to branch out when you have a good, solid job to take a risk. You're an attorney, and you took a jump into something you had to pay for. That's like, people can look from the outside and be like, that we're never attorneys and say that, but let's just put in perspective, like, you've got this crazy, this good job. You make a good paycheck. It's consistent. It's going to be there. You like your boss, so on and so on. And then you have an opportunity to throw that all away on a dream or something that you like to do. That's a tough ticket to sell.
Yeah. For me, though, it was an easy decision. And I think that when you find your passion, and this is something, if these people haven't found their passion, then that is a tough thing. And it is a tough thing to help them, guide them toward what they're passionate about. But once they find it, it's an easy decision to pursue it. That's simple. But there's a lot of times where people, what their contribution's supposed to be includes that 9-to-5 job, because they can do this as a side hustle, or this is a charity that's never going to make a big paycheck, but they can impact the world through it. And so I wouldn't say that, like, every time someone needs to follow their passions, it doesn't always mean quit the job you're doing because you're in a trap. That doesn't necessarily mean that. There are other ways to feed the passion and make your contribution to the world. Or maybe you can do it at that job. Your on-paper job says you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Well, yeah, you're also doing A, B, and C over here that's making more impact in the lives of the people around you than the actual job. So you never know. Every situation's unique. So I don't want people to hear this and go, I got to quit my job, because not necessarily. You just got to find a passion. And if you're one of the blessed few that can turn the passion into the profession, then take that, you run through that open door as fast as you can.
Oh, I mean, you were basically just speaking to me right there. That's my situation. It's the job allows me to do this, and I like my job, so it works out perfect. Like, I can do my job and be allowed to do something that I love, which I was actually having a conversation with a guy that, about the same thing, that this has given me a sense of purpose, and that has made me actually better at the job that I'm doing now.
That's awesome.
So
that's phenomenal.
I mean,
you're onto your secret sauce, man. It's different. It's different for everybody. You're onto it. You're working on the recipe right now.
All right, man. Well, it's running right at about the hour time limit, and I know you got kiddos, and we got family time to get to, kind of both of us. I've got chores I got to do after this too. I got to fix the door.
I've got a little nephew swimming party that I have to head to right now.
Oh, nice.
It never ends, man. But it's good. It's good. If you there's a bit of a hustle and a constant level of chaos in the life of an entrepreneur. But I signed up for it, and I think other people, if you're willing to do the work, the reward is awesome.
That's great, man. That's great. Well, tell everybody where they can find you, when Daytripper airs, the season you're on, all that good stuff. Whatever you want to let them know.
The self-promoting pitch. Here it goes. We're filming season 11 right now. That won't start until October, though. Our current episodes of the Daytripper are airing on your PBS station, wherever you are, but that's the beauty of PBS. We have no idea or control over when that is. So check your local listings, or make it easy. Just go to thedaytripper.com, thedaytripper.com. And you can find all of our back episodes there and stuff like that. That's the easiest thing. Or, of course, social media and all that stuff, at Chet Tripper is the handle. So,
yep. And
there you go.
Awesome, man. Well, Chet, I really appreciate it, dude. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, dude, it's been a blast, man. We'll stay in touch. Maybe we can do a fill-in on all this, a catch-up in a year or so. Congratulations on the full year of podcasting, man. I'm so pumped for you. That's huge.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.